Well, this afternoon, let's talk corruption because the Office of the Special Prosecutor is going after an unknown businessman that is alleged to have attempted bribing some members of the majority caucus in Parliament. In the Office of the Special Prosecutors have yearly statutory reports. Kisi Ejabing says his outfit is liaising with the Office of the Speaker of Parliament on that matter. Let's bring you highlights of the report as released by the Special Prosecutor. So here's the Special Prosecutor, first of all, giving an update on issues relating to bribery in connection with the Inter-Ministerial Mining Committee. He first of all points out that the office has concluded investigations into the allegations of the use of public office for profit against Charles Bisu during his tenure as Secretary to the erstwhile Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, arising from an investigative documentary titled Galamsey Fraud Part 1, published by the Tiger IPI team and investigative journalist Anas Arimyao Anas. Now, the Special Prosecutor or an authorized officer will issue directives and further actions on this matter in due course. Beyond this as well, we know that there's the issue about the Northern Development Authority. The Special Prosecutor indicates that investigations into the suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of a contract awarded by the Northern Development Authority consortium to consultancy services under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program, which is the IPEP, especially in respect of the quantum of contract sum. The Special Prosecutor indicates that he will issue some further directives on that one as well in due course. So no conclusive points on that one in terms of the NDA. But when it comes to Charles Bisu, upon a referral by the President of the Republic, a letter dated 14th of November 2022, the office commenced some investigations into the suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of Charles Edubaying, a former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. So for him, of course, we know that his case is in connection with the Galamsey economy, as published by Tiger IPI investigative team, which obviously the Special Prosecutor is giving some further directives on. The allegations of an attempt to bribe members of Parliament. This is where we want to focus on this afternoon because the office has commenced investigations into the allegations, an attempt by what the Special Prosecutor is describing for the very first time now as an unnamed and, quote, a wealthy businessman to bribe some members of the majority caucus in Parliament. Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor says it's triggering some level of liaison with the Office of the Speaker of Parliament in this regard, so we are able to come to some conclusion on this matter. So, will the Special Prosecutor be successful this time round? Let's broaden the conversation here on The Pulse. I want to bring in now Samir Bin, his Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa. Also joining us is Niama Adi, a lawyer and one of the leading members of the Coalition for Social Justice, CSJ. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I want to start off with you, Samir, because you know about the workings in Parliament. Elsewhere in the US, for instance, lobbying is allowed, where, of course, when you have a bill not favoring you or either pushing for a bill that will favor you, you have individuals who want to push their interest. But in this case, will it be a crime if we have a businessman, as he's been named or described as a wealthy one, of course, influencing our MPs? Will that amount to some level of a crime by our laws?
Good afternoon, Blessed. So let's note that the wording in the report of the Office of Special Prosecutor was quite specific. It says that it is investigating allegation of attempted bribery of members of Parliament. You know, and so this moves away from the conversation about whether it is lobbying and whether there's a kind of lobbying that is done in the United States of America or what have you. The allegations that were put across in the media by some members of Parliament, which were corroborated by the majority leader of Parliament, was that there was an attempted situation of somebody wanting to have members of Parliament change a decision that they are supposed to make. And these people who made the allegations described it as an attempted bribery, which has been captured in the report of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. It is worth noting that in the countries where there are, lobbying arrangements, like you try to describe it, those are clearly defined. There are rules that, govern these things. There are ways in which you can do and cannot do them. We don't have similar situation here. And for a country where members of parliament have the power to take some very major decisions, it is frightening to learn that wealthy businessmen will storm parliament and would want to bribe, allegedly, members of parliament from taking a particular decision in a way that catches the public attention, and then a few weeks later, we do not hear about it again. I think that this indication in the report of the Office of Special Prosecutor is very welcoming, and it would require that we all take up the mantle of following it through, to make sure that we are getting reports on how it is going, where it is going, so this does not become one of the cases that dies a natural death.
You are conversant with activities in Parliament. In fact, you're very much vexed in the issues that have transpired in previous sessions as well. This is not the first time we are hearing allegations of bribery. It dates way back to the times of PC Apiaofori and the likes. Of course, many would say that we would not be conclusive on this matter, and that it's just one of those cases that will go unpunished if indeed the acts occurred. What level of confidence do you have now in the special prosecutor?
Well, it's only natural for people not to have confidence in the process, in a country where these things have gone unpunished, as you have, indicated in the past. But remember that we got the act on the Office of Special Prosecutor passed in 2017. The office was set up, subsequently. And this is one of the cases that the Office of Special Prosecutor itself had put in its report as one that it intends to investigate. I think the difference between what has happened in the past and what must happen this time around is that we keep the vigilance. Members of parliament are not above board, but right. Individuals who think that they should have what it takes to influence unjustly or influence in a wrong way the decisions that gets taken in parliament, must also know that these things will not be countenanced. The special prosecutor in his report describes how they intend to make, matters of corruption a high risk, very expensive venture, so people would not, naturally be interested in venturing into. Of course, they know that elimination of it completely is an uphill task, but to make it high risk. And one of the ways of making some of these things high risk is for people to know that you cannot use bribery as a way to influence legislation, influence decision-making in the august House of Parliament, or probably change the way that things are supposed to go in the Parliament of Ghana, just because you are a business person, you are wealthy, and you have interest. If we allow these things to fester, we are setting a very, very, very dangerous, a situation for ourselves, especially for a parliament like ours, especially for all of the risk situations that comes with the kind of parliamentary settings and the kinds of election financing situation that we have in this country. If we allow some of these things to go, we risk having a parliament where people can influence it unjustly, and it will come to bite all of us citizens of this world.
Sami, I want you to hold on for us. Let's bring in Niamadi as well. He's with the Coalition for Social Justice, a lawyer as well. And Ni, there's this argument coming up that the special prosecutor may be limited by the Constitution, knowing that what's happening now involves members of Parliament. The Privileges Committee may be of course, claiming locus in this case, arguing that the special prosecutor has no right to come into this matter. What's your legal opinion on this matter?
Thank you very much. Our center is called Center for Social Justice, okay. CSJ.
Right.
So, yeah, Center for Social Justice. Okay, so let me lay the preamble for the discussion. Attempts to bribe exists in common law, okay? And in the model panels law, so that an attempt to bribe and completed bribery are an identical punishment. An attempt to bribe and completed bribery has an identical punishment. So for the fact that somebody has attempted to bribe members of parliament, I mean, it's grounded in law. I mean, you cannot say that the bribe was not completed. As I said, the model panel's code states clearly, and the common law also states clearly. So nobody can argue about that. And once it has come out, which again my colleague on the other side said that it was corroborated by the majority speaker, that a businessman has attempted to influence them. First of all, you want to look at the context, for which reason the Privileges Committee is saying that the special prosecutor cannot get in. What is the context? The context is that the majority has moved or agitated for the Minister for Finance to be impeached. And that is where this attempted bribery came in, so that the move by the majority members of parliament would not succeed. So that is an attempted bribery. So for any committee in parliament to say that the special prosecutor cannot get in, I think that it is not proper for the democracy that we practice.
So your argument is, if I'm getting your argument right, your case is that the special prosecutor at this moment has every right to invite MPs over just the attempts to bribe, and that's grounded in law.
Yes, that is very much so.
But he says the approach is choosing
has every right.
The approach is choosing now is to liaise with the office of the Speaker of Parliament.
Exactly so. And I mean, once the person who attempted to bribe can be identified,
right,
then the special prosecutor can go on. But first of all, you need witnesses, okay, so that it does not become a thing of a hearsay. That is why Parliament would have to work with the special prosecutor in order to get into the investigation. But if for any reason the institution, the very institution that has been mentioned in this attempted bribery, is refusing to work with the special prosecutor, then it is not very good for our democracy. It is not very good for the corruption that seems to have toppled, I mean, governments, and particularly in this previous government, because let's not sweep the issues under the carpet. The issue of Mr. Dubois, okay, which is also an act of crime, and I say so because it is grounded in law, that solicitation of a bribe also constitutes a crime. And what we saw in the Tiger Eye video, there was a solicitation that if you give X amount of money, then I'll give you access to so and so. Okay, so for a government that has been tainted with a lot of corruption, and if you read the 14 or so page report of the special prosecutor, numerous corruptions have been mentioned there, all pointing to government. So I feel that for a government that wants to say that is so sacrosanct, for a government that wants to say that, yes, I'm not corrupt, that government must be willing and able to ably support the special prosecutor to get to the bottom of this matter.
Well, and that's where I want us to move on to. Will we ever find this businessman? I want to start off with you, Sammy Obeng, on that. Knowing how Parliament operates in Ghana. It's not as though I'm claiming that the MPs would not be willing to testify on this matter, but do you believe that we'll be able to find this quote-unquote wealthy businessman?
Yes, yes, if we are willing and obedient, we should be able to find this person.
I'll come to you on that. Let's hear from Sami on that in terms of how the workings of Parliament is, and if indeed the majority caucus will be willing to give out the details. Sami, help us on that. Can we find the businessman? Yes.
Well, Blessed, this story broke exactly 2 months ago, I think around the 3rd of November. Of course, I read a news item a few weeks ago, which was asking how come after 2 months, even major media houses, including yours truly, have still not been able to even give us indications on who this wealthy businessman could possibly be. We know that these people who perhaps engage in such things have their own contacts and connections and their own influences, even in suppressing news stories and news items such as this. But let's not belittle the efforts by the members of parliament to first of all make this public.
Right.
You know, this meeting could have happened. They could have taken the money, and these things could have been suppressed, and we would not have.
Yeah, but we're not even sure if they rejected.
No, what I'm saying is that
sure.
this matter could have happened, and nobody would have heard about anything because no member of parliament would have been willing to come out to talk about it. So first of all, it is worth to commend the members of parliament who came out to fly the kites, that somebody is trying to bribe them so they are unable to do the work the way they need to do it. The second thing is that the Office of Special Prosecutor is placing the investigation on identifying and perhaps, if there is merit for that, punishing that wealthy businessman. But like Nee indicated, to be able to identify the wealthy businessman, you need to go into that space where the allegations were made, to find witnesses, to be able to give you indications and leads. And that is where I think the liaison with the Office of the Speaker comes in, because, of course, the Office of the Special Prosecutor having full policing powers and what have you, if they need to invite one MP or the other to come and ask, to come and answer the questions on who the businessman was, were you in the meeting, what did he offer, and what have you, they certainly, out of courtesy and out of the recent history that we have had, and of course, steeped in our constitution, need to engage with the Right Honourable Speaker for that to happen. But I personally think that if we are committed to this process, we'll be able to find some leads. I don't think that it should be a secret that we will not be able to identify that businessman who stormed Parliament, that the majority leader of Parliament acknowledges that he stormed Parliament, that a member of Parliament at least acknowledges that he stormed Parliament and met with a group of MPs. The first thing is to identify the businessman, and then to be able to identify the motive, and then to be able to identify whether, it was an act of bribery, wanting to pursue the situation and all of that. I think that the Special Prosecutor's Office is clothed with the powers to be able to do this. But the difference between whether this would find any success or not would depend on whether you in the media, myself in civil society, the general public will not look away while these things go on, but will continue to ensure that this particular matter remains on the agenda, so that we will not have an issue of civil society, including the media, stopping to talk about this matter because it's a case of a news item that is being suppressed. And so it is exciting that the Office of Special Prosecutor has indicated it in its report. At least we have a formal document to be able to show that, sir, you promised us at the end of 2022 that this is under investigation. Where are we by mid-year 2023? Remember that the office also is required to present regular reports, just like what it had actually presented. And so in the subsequent reports, we certainly expect that they will be able to let us know whether this investigation has moved from where it's currently categorized as an issue that they have just commenced the investigation into a closed case, or into a case that prosecution has begun and what have you. So the vigilance... Let me play the devil's
advocate here. I mean, someone would say, what's the big deal? He attempted bribery. He was not successful after all. That ends it, right?
Well, Nee explained to you how, an attempted bribery, is perhaps on the same pedestal with successful bribery, let alone attempting to bribe a public official, a representative of the people, or a group of representatives of the people from taking a certain decision that they are supposed to take in the national interest. Think about it. Think about what will happen if these things do not get checked, when we know that businessmen then can attempt to bribe or succeed in bribing parliamentarians to pass laws that will not be in the interest of Ghana. Think about it. If business people can be able to bribe parliamentarians so that they, pass loan agreements or tax waivers or whatever remains within their power to be able to do, simply because some of these things go unchecked. It's a very, very serious issue. The role of parliamentarians are very sensitive, and we know how state capture by business people, wealthy business people, can actually lead to the messy situation that we found in countries across the world. And we don't think that we want to, reduce the Ghana parliament to a situation where wealthy business people would sit outside of parliament, but will be the ones that are controlling the kinds of decisions that gets taken in the hallowed chamber of parliament.
Well, and gentlemen, let's focus on the special prosecutor himself. Nneɛma Addy, let me bring you in at this point. Do you feel that, given the track record of Kisi Ejabing, he has the balls, quote unquote, to deal with this matter? It involves potentially over 100 members of parliament and has some, of course, direct bearing on the ruling party, the governing New Patriotic Party. That's not going to be an easy task for him, you agree?
I mean, definitely it's going to be a routine task. But for me, he bringing it out is the first sign of seeking solutions to it. Because if he did not bring them out, then you have everything to say that he's probably covering the sins of people in government, or he's probably covering the sins of his bosses, if you like. But to have brought it out is half the problem solved. So for me, I want to praise him for that as number one. Number two, we have to go beyond that. Okay. My worry now is I was reading the episode of Matiamidu.
Right.
And I don't want us, you see, I don't want a seeming thing, or I don't want to say that the prophecies or otherwise the manifestations of Matiamidu is being repeated. Because when he presented that episode, that report, what I sometimes call a thesis on the Ejapa deal, he said that he has given it to Rollins. Rollins had discussed it to, and may so rest in peace, he had discussed it with the president. And the president was not happy that Martin Amidu, has mentioned it to former President Rollins. Okay? And we saw what happened. And he's saying that he stepped out because he said he found himself in what? In a bee of corruption. And in that position, what can you do? It's just like you're playing with a what do you call it? With a spider in its web. I mean, the spider has mastered its web so much that you cannot play with it.
And neither, so precisely why I'm asking the question. Precisely why I'm asking the question. Do you feel that Kisi Ejabing will be able to hold on with this case and push it through?
I mean, Kisi Ejabing has done what he has to do by first principle to make the corruption known and made public, and has given it or is inviting the relevant institutions to help him do it. So he has done the first principle, which I'm very happy with. If those institutions does not help, then that becomes the other thing. And I think that the onus lies on the president, who is the first gentleman of the country, to ensure that this corruption is nipped in the bud, that this investigation is seen to the bottom of it. I mean, we saw Mr. Dubois being asked to step aside. We want to see that same punishment in all these corruptions that have been mentioned. That let us not forget that bribery or a completed bribery, the punishment for both are identical. So once it has come out, once it is made manifest, once the report has brought it and mentioned institutions and mentioned individuals, I think that the onus is on our president. And for me, I'll lay it squarely at his door to ensure that these issues are not left as they are. Other than that, we're building a very bad country.
Nneɛma Addy, I'm grateful. And for you, Sami, as we wrap up, what's your expectation from the office of the Speaker, briefly as we wrap up?
Well, Blessed, again, let's ensure that we keep the focus on the fact that it is a wealthy businessman who has attempted to bribe members of parliament who is being investigated, so that we do not fall into the trap of a country where usually we get the politicians involved, and then because of politics, the issue gets messed up. If indeed there was a wealthy businessman who attempted to bribe members of parliament from taking a decision that they needed to take as part of their legitimate responsibilities, he needs to be singled out or he or she needs to be, well, they said it's a businessman, so he needs to be singled out, certainly, and the necessary punishment that needs to be meted out, or the investigations and the necessary prosecution that needs to be done gets done. I expect that the Speaker's office would actually collaborate with the Office of the Special Prosecutor on this, because it is about somebody who tried to do something untoward with members of parliament. Members of parliament, out of their own volition, came out to actually voice this out to the public, and so they must be seen to going through the entire process right through to the end. And we'll look forward to following through.
How about the Privileges Committee itself? Any option?
Well, I don't really think that. I really don't think that the Privileges Committee comes in here with this particular situation. I think that bribery is crime. Attempted bribery is crime.
Right.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor is that office closed enough to be able to investigate this? So far as I'm concerned, with my limited understanding of the law, yes, it is closed with the power to be able to do that, and it must be supported to do its work.
I'm grateful, Samuel, being Executive Director for the Parliamentary Network Africa, also to Ni Ama Adi with the Center for Social Justice this afternoon.